Remember the days when every backyard had rows of vegetables and kitchens were filled with the aroma of home cooking? Well, today we're going to explore 15 forgotten vegetables from your grandparents' garden. These heirloom gems once thrived in simpler, self-sufficient times and offered robust flavors and plenty of nostalgia. Let's take a stroll down memory lane and celebrate these classic crops and maybe even inspire you to plant a few in your own garden. Start with number 15, Bloomsdale spinach. Bloomsdale spinach is a testament to old-fashioned gardening wisdom and has been around since the late 1800s. This heirloom produces thick, crinkled leaves, often called savoyed, which makes them naturally more resistant to a cold snap. Families in the 1900s prized Bloomsdale for its reliability. While everything else in the garden was struggling, this spinach would keep on producing. The leaves' sturdy texture and deep green color meant that they could be harvested again and again, stretching a family's food supply through unpredictable seasons. From a taste standpoint, Bloomsdale spinach had a rich, earthy flavor that set it apart from many modern hybrids. As a cool weather crop, it would grow vigorously in the early spring or late fall, thriving in temperatures that might make other plants bolt or wither. Back in the day, folks often harvested it young for salads or let the leaves mature for a hearty soup. Nutritionally, it was packed with iron, folate, and vitamins A and C, powerful allies in warding off common nutritional deficiencies of that era. Modern gardeners still appreciate Bloomsdale's timeless qualities. Its tolerance for chilly nights and robust flavor all evoke a sense of nostalgia that any spinach lover can appreciate. If you're looking for a leafy green that connects you to centuries of gardening tradition, Bloomsdale spinach just might be the ticket. Number 14, fish pepper. The fish pepper stands as one of the more intriguing heirlooms that survived the late 19th century, and the name gives away part of its claim to fame. This pepper was famously used to spice up seafood dishes along the mid-Atlantic coast, especially in African-American communities around the Chesapeake Bay. By the early 1900s, it became a favorite in crab shacks and fish markets, cherished not only for that zesty kick, but its also striking appearance. Visually, the fish pepper is a showstopper. The plant's foliage can be often varied, and its leaves are streaked with green and white. The peppers themselves often start off a creamy white and mature through shades of light green, orange, and finally a vibrant red. Heat levels can vary, but they generally rank in the medium range on the Scoville scale, offering enough warmth to enhance a dish without completely overwhelming other flavors. Beyond the culinary heritage, the fish pepper symbolizes the resourcefulness of early 20th century gardeners who needed adaptable, multi-use crops. It's just as ornamental as it is edible, brightening up any backyard patch. For a taste of history and a dash of color, this pepper is a perfect fit for those looking for a spicy and nostalgic treat. Number 13, Crenshaw melon. Crenshaw melon, often called the Cadillac of melons, has delighted taste buds since becoming popular in the early 20th century. It's a hybrid of cassava and Persian melons, and it boasts a distinctive teardrop shape, smooth greenish yellow rind, and a succulent salmon-colored flesh. This melon earned its stripes in grandparents' gardens, all thanks to its unrivaled sweetness and smooth texture, qualities that made it a prized centerpiece at summertime picnics and family gatherings. Weighing anywhere from 5 to 8 pounds on average, Crenshaw melons could be a bit finicky about growing conditions. They love warmth and they need a decent amount of space to sprawl, but for gardeners dedicated enough to nurture them, the payoff was substantial. The melons develop an intense aroma as they ripen, signaling the perfect time to harvest. In the early 1900s, families would often wait patiently for that sweet perfume to fill the yard, ensuring that they picked the fruit at its peak. Culinarily, Crenshaw melons would shine in fresh fruit salads, smoothies, or simply sliced for a juicy snack. Their high natural sugar content makes them a favorite for homemade sorbets and fruit preserves. Growing Crenshaw melons connects us to a period when fresh, sun-ripened produce was the highlight of every summer feast. Number 12, the red Weathersfield onion. The red Weathersfield onion traces its roots to the mid-1800s and quickly gained a reputation as a workhorse in American gardens. By the early 1900s, it was widely cultivated for its robust size, intense flavor, and reliable storage potential, qualities that were critical in a time before refrigeration was common. Known for its flattened globe shape and rich purple-red hue, this onion was a household staple that added a pungent kick to soup, stews, and pickling recipes. Gardeners appreciated red Weathersfield for its ability to produce consistent yields even in less than ideal conditions. This trait made it especially valuable to families who depended on their gardens for daily sustenance. After harvest, these onions could be kept for months in a cool, dry place, ensuring a taste of homegrown flavor well into winter. The strong flavor profile also set red Weathersfield apart from milder onions. Many older recipes would call for them specifically, favoring the extra bite for roasts and other hearty dishes that defined American comfort food in the early 20th century. If you ever wondered why your grandparents' soup might have seemed to have a richer and deeper taste, well, the red Weathersfield onion might be a key ingredient behind that nostalgic memory. Number 11. Scarlet runner beans. Scarlet runner beans have long been admired for their brilliant red blossoms and vigorous growth habit. Originating in Central America, they made their way into American gardens well before the 1900s, but truly gained widespread popularity in the early 20th century. They stood out for doing double duty, both as an ornamental plant and a highly productive vegetable. Many grandparents grew them along fences or trellises, letting the scarlet flowers form a natural, colorful curtain through the warm months. The beans themselves are versatile. Harvest the pods when they're younger and tender for a fresh green bean flavor. If you let them mature, you'll have large speckled seeds that are perfect for shelling. Boiled, stewed, or baked, the mature beans offer a hearty, almost nutty taste. This made it an ideal staple in a time when protein sources needed to come directly from the backyard. Historically, families also valued scarlet runner beans for their resilience. They tolerate cool nights, they germinate fairly easily, and can climb 10 feet or more if given adequate support. Children in the early 1900s would often marvel at how quickly these vines seemed to shoot up, day by day. Whether grown today as a striking ornamental or a backyard protein boost, scarlet runner beans carry the spirit of a more self-reliant era. Number 10. Golden Bantam corn. Golden Bantam corn, introduced by W. Atlee Burpee in 1902, revolutionized home gardens by providing that sweet corn that could be reliably grown almost anywhere. Before its debut, most folks associated homegrown corn with field varieties that were tougher and less sweet. Golden Bantam changed all of that. By the 1910s and 1920s, it spread across the country, quickly becoming a summer staple in backyards and roadside stands alike. Its yellow kernels are plump, sugary, and distinctly creamy in texture. In the early 1900s, families often enjoyed Golden Bantam as a fresh boiled treat, slathered in butter or canned to preserve to brighten meals during winter. Gardeners appreciated the relatively short time for maturity, making it easier to harvest multiple times throughout the growing season. From a horticultural standpoint, Golden Bantam thrives in full sun and requires moderate watering. It's an open-pollinated variety, which means that gardeners can save seeds from season to season, just like their grandparents did in generations past. This practice not only preserved the unique flavor, but also maintained genetic diversity in local fields. If you're longing for that old-fashioned sweet burst of flavor, reminiscent of simpler days, well, Golden Bantam corn still delivers that taste of a summer straight out of the past. Number 9. Red Russian kale. Red Russian kale demonstrates the practicality and adaptability that characterized gardens in the early 1900s. Originating in Siberia and introduced to North America via Canada, this kale variety is known for its flat, frilly leaves with purple veins, a sharp contrast to the more common curly varieties. Gardeners valued it for its cold tolerance, crucial for extending the harvest season in regions with early frost. In many ways, Red Russian kale became a nutritional safety net, ensuring fresh grains well into the cooler months. Taste-wise, the Red Russian kale was described as sweeter and more tender than its curly cousins. Once the first light frost hit, the leaves would take on a mild, almost nutty flavor that worked beautifully in salads, soups, and stews. This variety was especially important in the 1900s when people had to rely on their own gardens to put nutritious meals on the table year-round. Beyond its taste and resilience, Red Russian kale is also relatively fast-growing, making it ideal for multiple plantings through the spring and fall. Its vibrant coloration adds ornamental appeal, and children back in the day might have found the purple vein leaves far more intriguing than a plain head of cabbage. For a taste of old-world reliability, Red Russian kale remains a top pick. Number 8. Tennis ball lettuce. Tennis ball lettuce stands out as a curious little heirloom that dates back to the 18th century and remained popular in the early 1900s. As the name implies, the heads are roughly the size of tennis balls, perfect single servings for sandwiches or salads. Families loved these compact heads because they could harvest them steadily, without the risk of big heads bolting or going to waste in hot weather. The texture is soft and buttery, reminiscent of modern butterhead lettuces, but with a delicate crispness that's all its own. In the 1900s, it was common to see small patches of tennis ball lettuce near kitchen doors, so a quick harvest for the day's lunch was literally steps away. Kids often got their first taste of gardening by picking these petite heads. One of the best perks of growing tennis ball lettuce was its quick maturity. You could plant seeds in early spring and, in just a matter of weeks, be enjoying fresh, homegrown greens. Gardeners today still appreciate the efficiency, especially with those with limited space who wanted a continuous supply of salad fixings. It's an heirloom that perfectly embodies the practicality and flavor-forward approach of our ancestors' gardens. Number 7. Brandywine tomatoes. Brandywine tomatoes are synonymous with the idea of old-fashioned flavor. Rumored to date back to the late 19th century, it gained widespread acclaim in the early 1900s for its rich and almost buttery taste. Unlike the perfectly symmetrical tomatoes that are found in modern supermarkets, Brandywines can be large and lumpy and somewhat delicate. However, once you take a bite, you'll understand why your grandparents grew them year after year. The tomato's fruit can weigh in at a pound or more, which makes it perfect for a hearty sandwich and thick-cut slices. The color typically ranges from a rosy pink to a deep red, though variations do exist. Your grandparents love Brandywine for its intense, balanced flavor, a mix of sweetness and acidity that modern hybrids often failed to replicate. Such taste was especially valuable when fresh tomatoes only appeared for a brief period each year, making the harvest a real treat. Brandywines typically took a bit longer to mature, often around 80 days, so patience is key. They appreciate warm soil, consistent watering, and sturdy supports to handle their impressive fruit sets. Even though the vines can be prone to disease, many found the extra care worth it. If you yearn for that authentic tomato taste of a bygone era, Brandywine is a must-try. Number 6. Rhubarb. Now, technically a vegetable, rhubarb has been treated like fruit in American kitchens for generations. Its thick, tart stalks were often a saving grace for families in the early 1900s, providing a burst of tangy flavor long before sweet summer berries arrived. Now, one reason rhubarb stood out in grandparents' gardens was its perennial nature. You plant it once and you harvest it for years. That reliability means a yearly supply of the main ingredient for pies, jams, and sauces. The stalks range in color from bright red to pale green, with deeper shades often indicating a sweeter flavor. However, no matter the color, rhubarb's trademark zing remains intact. People back then have learned to temper its sourness with sugar, turning it into comforting desserts like strawberry rhubarb pie or savory sweet side dishes for meat. If you ever tasted an old-fashioned rhubarb jam, you know just how special that balance of sweet and tart can be. Note of caution though, the leaves contain oxalic acid, which are a bit toxic, so only the stalks are safe to eat. As a cold hardy perennial, rhubarb can thrive in regions with harsh winters, a perfect fit for those old homesteads. This hardy, vivacious plant truly represents the resourcefulness up north of times gone by. Number 5. Moon and Stars watermelon. Moon and Stars watermelon might be the most visually striking melon in any garden. Discovered in the early 1900s, it owes its name to the bright yellow circular moons and tiny speckled stars that dot the dark green rind. The variety was nearly lost to commercial agriculture in the mid-20th century, but it was revived by heirloom enthusiasts who recognized its unique beauty and flavor. On the inside, Moon and Stars typically sports a deep red flesh that's both sweet and juicy, a testament to the original open-pollinated genetics that were treasured by early American farmers. In a time when everything was grown for utility, the Moon and Stars watermelon also brought a whimsical aesthetic to kitchen gardens, captivating children and adults alike. Growth-wise, the watermelon is happiest in full sun, with lots of room to sprawl. It can be a bit more finicky about soil quality and water than other melons, but the payoff is visually stunning. It's a crop that tastes just as good as it looks. In the 1900s, families may grow a single patch of Moon and Stars watermelon, eagerly awaiting those first yellow spots that signaled that fruit was on its way. For a dash of sweet nostalgia, this heirloom can't be beat. Number 4. The dragon carrot. While carrots have existed in various colors for centuries, the dragon carrot, well, it stood out for its vibrant purple skin and bright orange core. Though often thought of as a modern heirloom adaptation, it traces its lineage to older purple varieties that were very common and much more common than the orange ones that we're used to today. By the early 1900s, most American gardens had switched to predominantly orange carrots, but the reintroduction of purple strains brought back a fascinating piece of culinary history. Dragon carrots have a slightly spicy and earthy flavor that intensifies when eaten fresh. The purple pigments are rich in antioxidants, something early 20th century gardeners couldn't have explained without modern nutritional science, but they certainly appreciated the robust health benefits of homegrown veggies. A unique characteristic is how the color bleeds slightly when cooked, tinting soups and stews with a tinge of purple. Certainly an interesting conversation starter at the dinner table 100 years ago. Now, cultivating dragon carrots is relatively straightforward. You just loose the well-draining soil and consistent moisture all year long, just straight to the roots. And they also make for a fun project with kids. Much as it did in the past, it offers a colorful surprise when the carrots are pulled from the ground. If you want to taste something that's both timeless and distinctive, a dragon carrot, it's a very great and colorful pick. Number 3, Perkins long pod okra. Okra has had deep roots in Southern cuisine, and Perkins long pod okra exemplifies what made it a household name in the early 1900s. Known for producing an abundance of elongated ribbed pods, this heirloom variety was perfect for hearty stews, gumbos, and fried dishes that refined home cooking in many American families. In regions with scorching summers, Perkins long pod okra thrived where other vegetables wilted, making it a vital crop for self-sufficiency. Harvesting the pods early, when they're about 4 inches long, ensures the tender bite without that fibrous texture that some people can kind of be put off by. Now, back then, wise gardeners kept a close eye on their plants, plucking pods daily and keeping them coming. The plant itself can grow quite tall. It can reach 4 or 5 feet, and the blooms are a beautiful hibiscus-like yellow. The appeal of Perkins long pod okra goes beyond flavor, though. It's also relatively disease-resistant and tolerant of high heat, which is crucial in an era with limited pest control options. Families could pickle and can the surplus for winter months, guaranteeing a taste of the South long after the gardens have been cleared. So if you're looking for resilience and robust production, Perkins long pod okra carries on the proud and time-tested tradition. Number 2, Calabrese broccoli. Calabrese broccoli, hailing from the Calabrese region of Italy, begins to make its mark in American gardens in the early 1900s. Back then, many immigrants would bring seeds from their homelands, introducing flavors that would eventually become staples in the U.S. Unlike some modern hybrids, Calabrese produces a larger main head, followed by numerous side shoots once the main head gets harvested. This characteristic translates to an extended harvest period, a big plus for families who would seek maximum return from every plant. Flavor-wise, Calabrese broccoli has a robust earthy taste with a slight sweetness that intensifies when steamed or roasted. It's rich in vitamin C and K, and that's a fact that older generations might have discovered more intuitively than scientifically. But if it tasted healthy, it probably was. The broccoli also fared reasonably well in cooler temperatures, aligning nicely with the preference for fall and spring gardening that was practiced by a lot of families in the 1900s. Growing Calabrese typically involves starting seeds indoors to get a head start on the season. Once transplanted, the plants appreciate consistent watering and nutrient-rich soil. The reward is a harvest that stretches out for weeks, supplying plenty of florets for soups, stir-fries, and side dishes. For a vintage Italy meets America veggie story, Calabrese broccoli, it's hard to beat. And number 1, deer tongue lettuce. Deer tongue lettuce rounds out our list with its shape that sparked curiosity in gardens throughout the early 1900s. Named for its pointed leaves that taper like a deer's tongue, this heirloom lettuce offers a perfect combo of tender texture and sturdy structure. In an era when food waste was a major concern, deer tongue lettuce was prized for its ability to remain crisp and fresh for longer periods, whether in the ground or after harvest. Tasting slightly sweet with a mild crunch, these triangular leaves hold up well in salads without wilting too quickly. Gardeners then, and now, found deer tongue particularly easy to grow. It matures relatively fast, it can tolerate partial shade, and it bounces back quickly after a trim. In fact, many families would employ a cut-and-come-again approach, which snipped the outer leaves while allowing the center to continue producing new growth. But beyond culinary uses, deer tongue lettuce would bring a bit of visual flair to any garden bed or planter box. Children were often intrigued by the shape, and its novelty made it a conversation piece at a local market. If you wanted a taste of simpler times when every leaf counted and gardens were a source of daily wonder, deer tongue lettuce, that embodied that spirit perfectly. From buttery lettuces to sun-sweet melons, these 15 heirloom vegetables embody a past where patience, diligence, and flavor all reigned supreme. Each one offers a glimpse into the ingenuity and love of good food that shaped our grandparents' world. So whether you plan to sow a few seeds or just simply cherish the memories, remember that every harvest connects us to a tradition as old as America itself. If you enjoyed traveling back in time with these forgotten favorites, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into garden history. We hope you found this journey helpful and maybe even a little inspiring. We'll see you on our next video.